A service of KIBMradio.com, the Internet's home for an all old-time radio.
This week, the Eternal Light presents a special broadcast celebrating the re-establishment of the ancient Jewish Commonwealth in Eretz Yisrael through the creation by the United Nations Assembly of a Jewish state in Palestine. The National Broadcasting Company and its affiliated independent stations make free time available to present this program, which comes to you in cooperation with the Jewish Theological Seminary of America. We present Paul Muni and Morton Wishenbrad's document of a faith, and it came to pass. Our special guest soloist on today's program is Regina Resnick, dramatic soprano of the Metropolitan Opera Company.
I'm a Jew alive. In every Jew alive bears witness in his flesh to Jews who are dead. Therefore I say, this is a day which the Lord hath made. But I may not rejoice for long, not yet. The purchase price was set too high. The remnant of Jacob which shall return is small. And orphan children have not yet purged mind of memory and pain. Perhaps in a little while, perhaps then there will be time and space for gladness. In Flushing Meadow, where the decision was made, 57 nations read the documents and listened to the testimony, and then, when the time came to announce the vote, there was a pause. A longer pause than usual. A pause which lasted 2,000 years.
Palestine partition is voted 33-13.
There was no applause. There was only silence. And in the silence, Jacob, the son of Isaac, the son of Abraham, the son of Terach, formerly of the city of Ur in the Chaldees, opened to the well-worn place in the 12th chapter of the first book and read once more.
And the Lord said unto Abram, Get thee unto the land that I will show thee, and I will make of thee a great nation, and I will bless thee.
In the city of Jerusalem, they opened a book further to a place of Isaiah's prophecy.
And it shall come to pass in that day that the remnant of Israel, and they that are escaped out of the house of Jacob, shall no more again stay upon him that smote them, but shall stay upon the Lord, the Holy One, in truth. A remnant shall return, even the remnant of Jacob, and Zion shall be redeemed in righteousness and justice.
Zion v'nishpat tipodeh.
Zion shall go forth the law, and the word of the Lord from Jerusalem. And in New York City a voice declared,
Not only has our cause triumphed at Flushing Meadows, but the United Nations has triumphed through our cause. This is the first time that the United Nations and the civilized world have decided to create a new state.
Zion v'nishpot tipodeh, and Zion shall be redeemed in righteousness.
In Flushing Meadow, 57 nations read the documents and heard the testimonies. But not every document was offered, nor was the testimony given in full. Faith is also testimony, and worship is a document of faith, acceptable to God and entitled to the sovereign consideration of men. It is entirely proper, then, to offer the testimony of 2,000 years of faith, the documents of Scripture, prophecy, and prayer. Consider them wisely, for they will give no truth except the truth of life, and no beauty except that beauty that's discovered in the agony and nakedness of souls. And consider also the words,
Im eshkachech Yerushalayim, tishkach yamini.
If I forget thee, O Jerusalem, let my right hand forget its strength. Zionism was born the day the temple was destroyed. Israel became a wanderer and was dispersed among the nations, but Israel did not forget. They were the scattered herdsmen of Canaan. They were the fugitive seed of Jerusalem's royal shepherd, the generations of David the king. And so, standing in the cities of the dispersion, they turned hearts eastward and they sang a psalm of longing.
Im eshkachech Yerushalayim, tishkach yamini.
If I forget thee, O Jerusalem, let my right hand forget its strength. immemorial pledge which was transmuted into the Rhapsody of Yehudi Alevi. My heart is in the east, and I in the uttermost west. How can I find savor in food? How shall it be sweet to me? O Zion, I would fall with my face upon thine earth, and take delight in thy stones, and be tender to thy dust. I would pass into thy forest and thy fruitful field, and stand within thy Gilead, and wonder at thy mount beyond. Does sanction to be rooted come from a people's character? They had come out of Egypt as slaves. They had trained themselves to freedom with the terrible and holy passion that only slaves can know. In their latter generations, the prophet Amos came down from Tekoa. Isaiah rose up to proclaim a vision of justice. Hosea was taught by suffering to declare the law of mercy. In their midst, the psalmist was kissed by God and patterned for all mankind the language of poetry. And when rooted up from out of the land and cast abroad, they never forgot. When they built their synagogues...
Here, set the ark here, toward the east, toward Jerusalem.
Zion was in the mouth of babes, and each young life was consecrated by its hope. Boys ascended the bema in their 13th year and were confirmed as legal members of the congregation in the ceremony of bar mitzvah.
Have mercy upon Zion, for it is the home of our life, and save her that is grieved in spirit, speedily and in our day. Blessed art thou, O Lord, who makest Zion joyful to her children.
They did not forget. It was their life, and life may not be forgotten. There are reminders, the small ceremonial reminders of individual existence, the greater ceremonial reminders of individuals joined together.
The bridegroom will place the ring upon the forefinger of the right hand of the bride. Bridegroom, repeat after me. Behold thou, Rebekah, the daughter of Daniel.
Behold thou, Rebekah, the daughter of Daniel.
Art betrothed unto me.
Art betrothed unto me.
According to the law of Moses and Israel.
According to the law of Moses and Israel.
A marriage ceremony, a testimony of daily life, a document submitted by Israelites in all the countries upon all the continents of God's earth.
This glass is a symbol of the Temple of Jerusalem. Even in this moment of your happiness, you may not forget that Israel is exiled from Zion, and that the Temple of Jerusalem has been destroyed. Therefore, tread down hard upon this glass and break it.
In the shining white city of Moorish Spain, or in the Polish ghettos and Bohemian villages, each man who occupied a dwelling took up his hammer and nailed a Mizrach plate against the eastern wall. And upon each Sabbath day of the year, they prayed,
Bring us in peace from the four corners of the earth, and make us go upright to our land, for thou art a God who worketh salvation.
In the years of cruel oppression, in the years of Black Death, in the cities of the German Rhineland, in the years of Inquisition, in the days of the Russian pogrom, and in more recent days of the cold thrust of annihilation, those with body left and utterance remaining stole diligently to the synagogues upon the holiest day of the year. And when the long service of the Day of Atonement was concluded, they said,
Leshana Abba Be'Yerushalayim.
Next year in Jerusalem.
Merry
Jerusalem. Words, yes. Words of piety and ritual, yes, but words to sustain a faltering heart. Words to evoke a memory of the past and build a healing bridge above the present into the future of their fulfillment. You think the words were said in jest or without emotion? Do not think so. For hearts beat more quickly, and shoulders straightened, and a flush came to the cheeks, pale with fasting. They believed. They stood with Ezekiel in the valley of dry bones.
Behold, I will open your graves, and I will bring you into the land of Israel, and ye shall live. And I will place you in your own land, and ye shall know that I, the Lord, have spoken and performed it, saith the Lord.
And because they believed, they sang their faith each day after each meal in a song of grace. When the Lord turned us toward Zion, we were like unto them that dream. Then was our mouth filled with laughter, and our tongue with exultation. Then said they among the nations,
The Lord hath done great things for them.
The Lord hath done great things for us, whereat we rejoice. Bring back our captivity, O Lord, as the streams in the south. They that sow in tears shall reap in joy. Though he goeth on his way weeping, bearing the store of seed, he shall come back with joy, bearing his sheaves. Plain now. This is a faith based firmly in that land called Eretz Yisrael, quickened by the land and focused by it. They were bookbinders in Warsaw, but the daily pledge of prayer was for them,
And I shall give grass in thy field for thy cattle, and thou shalt eat and be satisfied.
He was a bookbinder. He was a stoop-shouldered mechanic in a stone city where there was neither grass nor cattle. But he prayed for grass.
Maybe in Palestine they need a little pasture for the cattle. It will do no harm to read the prayer.
They were tinsmiths and lens grinders in Holland. They had no field to plow. But the words for them each day were nevertheless,
I will give the rain of your land in its season, the former rain and the latter rain.
Holland required no rain. For Holland that year there was rain and surfeit. There was flood. But they prayed for rain.
Palestine might need it.
The former rain and the latter rain.
Of course, there are two rainy seasons. And in a dry country without rain, nothing grows.
There was nothing strange in this for them. There were Jewish seamen who went down to sea in ships, and they prayed,
"And God give thee, O Zion, of the dew of heaven, and of the fatness of the earth, and plenty of corn and wine."
Do you see the plan in this? Outside, they were tailors and garment workers, but in the synagogues, they remembered the words of harvest and planting. In the houses and in their shops, they were city dwellers, but in their synagogues, they were herdsmen again and tillers of the soil. The green grass of Jezreel was all around them, and lifting their prayer books, they carried balm of Gilead and tasted grapes of Eshcol, and made a cup of their hands for the dew of Hangman. And so for a remnant it was a plan, and it came to pass, a plan for the return of them who of necessity would have to return or perish. A haven, a sanctuary, a refuge, a pledge redeemed. These are the documents, and this is the testimony of prayer and prophecy and scripture. In Flushing Meadow, 33 nations vindicated an ancient plan, and once again the people of Judea rises among the councils of nations. We who are in America shall bless them and make a prayer that they shall be happy in their land as we are happy in this, our land. May they also know the dignity of fulfillment. May they redeem themselves and follow justice. May they never forget that there is no human life and no nation and no faith without beauty and without holiness. May they love peace and pursue peace, and may they find peace and be a light to the nations.
And now we take pleasure in introducing Dr. Simon Greenberg, Provost of the Jewish Theological Seminary of America. Dr. Greenberg.
The decision of the United Nations Assembly to reestablish a Jewish state in Palestine is neither a political nor a military victory. It is above all a triumph of the Spirit and a vindication of a faith. For more than 1,800 years, and under the most adverse circumstances, the Jews remained unswerving in their faith in the promise God made to Abraham concerning Palestine. To thee have I given it, and to thy children after thee. The glorious vindication of this faith is the most eloquent testimony offered by all of human history to the prophetic truth that the grass withereth and flower fadeth, but the word of the Lord endureth forever. This triumph of the Spirit gives us renewed courage to believe that despite the present difficulties and disturbances, the renaissance of Judaism in the land of its birth will be but the prelude to the establishment of a world order of peace and brotherhood. While all lovers of justice rejoice in the action of the United Nations, the news was of greatest significance to the harried remnant of Jews who continue to live in DP camps. To them it means, in all literalness, a new lease on human dignity, on hope, and on life itself. It is fitting, therefore, that on this occasion we should hear from them through our distinguished fellow American, Judge Louis E. Leventhal. These past 6 months, Judge Leventhal has been in Germany, serving as advisor on Jewish affairs to General Lucius D. Clay, United States Military Governor of Germany. He has given a lifetime of service to America, to Zionism, to Jewish education, and to every good cause for the advancement of the welfare of his fellow man. Judge Leventhal will speak to us from Frankfurt.
A kind Providence has given me the privilege of working with my long-suffering fellow Jews here in Germany and Austria at this historic time when the 1900-year-old dream of our people is reaching fulfillment. I speak of the men and women who survived Auschwitz, Dachau, Buchenwald, and the other Nazi hells. I speak also of the men, women, and children who fought with Macedon valor in the underground and emerged from forests and caves, certain that they would share in the fate of victory. This illusion they have been sustained only by their unshakable faith that the civilized world must ultimately grant them real liberation. In these days of rejoicing, the Jewish displaced persons are deeply grateful to the Allied forces that rescued them, to the international agencies that have served them, and to American Jewry that has brought them relief and rehabilitation, and through representatives here have restored their dignity and faith in themselves. Mingled with their joy and thanksgiving, I have observed a profound sense of responsibility. They seem determined to prove themselves worthy of the verdict of history embodied in the decision of the United Nations. They are resolved, like their fellow Jews in Exodus 1947, to join the gallant pioneers and builders of Palestine in creating a state of which Jews everywhere may be proud. Although eager to live in friendship with their neighbors in the Holy Land, they are prepared to perish, if need be, in defense of their homeland. And they pray to their God, the God of Abraham, the father of both Jew and Arab, that the decision of the United Nations may be the forerunner to an era of genuine peace, security, and freedom for all mankind.
Thank you, Judge Leventhal. Our Eternal Light drama today, And It Came to Pass, was written by Morton Wishengrad and signalized the decision of the United Nations calling for the establishment of a Jewish state in Palestine. The music was arranged by Morris Momorsky and conducted by Milton Katams. Our special guests today were Paul Muni as the narrator and Miss Regina Resnick of the Metropolitan Opera Company. Cantor David Putterman sang the liturgical music. The entire production was under the direction of Frank Papp. This is NBC, the National Broadcasting Company.
Spake unto Moses, saying, Command the children of Israel that they bring unto thee pure oil olive, beaten for the light, to cause the lamps to burn continually in the tabernacle of the congregation. And it shall be a statute forever in your generation.
The Eternal Light. The National Broadcasting Company and its affiliated independent stations make free time available for the presentation of The Eternal Light, a program which comes to you under the auspices of the Jewish Theological Seminary of America. Our drama today by Morton Wishengrad is entitled The Singing Valley and is based on the first-hand story told by Yehudit Simhanit of the Council of Working Women in Palestine. Featured as the narrator is Virginia Payne.
By the springs of Nahalal, sweeter than the nightingale, the field swallow sings. The black iris spills wild across the valley, and if you look, you will see the first anemones reddening on the hills. The day breaks wet with morning dew, and the night hangs a candelabrum of stars. It is my valley, Emek Jezreel, the valley of Esdraelon. It goes down from Haifa in the land of Israel. It is a singing valley. Evenings when the houses lay white in the moon, the watchmen stand in the cottage shadows of the settlement, a gush of singing begins at Shar Hamarakim in the north and continues beyond Beth Alf in the south. Emek Jezreel is singing Ashrei Haish. We have borne our sheaves unto the hills of Zion to make way for the redeemed who come streaming into the land. In your own land you would call me Judith, but here I am known as Yehudit. 25 years ago I came to the valley. It was forbidding and desolate, the soil eroded and like flint, the swamps stagnant and malarial, the sun pitiless over a landscape never compromised by even a single tree. I remember the day we came, pioneers. Halitzin, a brave name for frightened young people from Russia and Poland. We felt the sun. We touched the soil. We smelled the stagnation of the swamp. And my brother Levi and David, whom I was to marry, stood with me almost without voice for speech.
I'm thirsty. Just to look gives you a thirst. Levi.
What, David?
The canteen.
Sorry. Help yourself.
You drink first, Yehudit.
David, where did this water come from?
The spring. The spring that feeds the swamp. The Arab who showed it to me said it was good water.
I'm thirsty, David, but I'll drink the water after it's boiled.
Yehudit, we mustn't be squeamish here.
Levi's right. The Arab says he and his family always drink it.
Ibrahim, that's his name, isn't it?
Well?
While you and the others were talking with him, I saw his children. Their bellies were swollen.
Can't blame that on the water.
Oh, perhaps not. Their eyes were inflamed, oozing. Perhaps you can't blame that on the water either, but let's boil whatever we drink, David.
It's a lot of trouble, Yehudit.
Takes a lot of trouble to live, especially here. I spoke to Ibrahim's wife. She told me a proverb of the valley. It takes 4 dead babies to make 1 live baby. 4 out of 5 babies die.
Yehudit, our children will live.
Will they? There's the water.
We shan't quarrel about that. The water will be boiling.
There's the swamp.
You'll drain it.
And the malaria. You can't drain malaria.
We've got petroleum for spraying the larvae.
Who is going to do all this?
We are Yehudit. You and Levi and I and all the others.
Where will we live? What will we eat while that is being done?
David, perhaps we've made a mistake to come here. We can still go back.
Is that what you want, Yehudit?
I want to be with you, David.
I want to stay here.
Why?
Because?
That's a child's answer.
I know.
Because of what, David?
You'd smile if I told you.
I won't smile.
I felt the way you did this morning. Then I looked there, toward the mountain. Do you know that mountain?
No.
That's Gilboa. Saul died there, and Jonathan. And Levi, where your eyes are turned, maybe that's where Amos stood in Tekoa.
That's why you want to stay here.
I told you you'd smile.
I'm not smiling.
Yehudit, I want you to stay with me.
I'm not sure, David.
Make peace with yourself, Yehudit. Say to yourself, this is where I must stay. Then it will come easy.
You told yourself that.
All morning. This is where I must stay. Say it yourself. Say, once long ago, when King David was king, Gideon gathered his men at Gilboa. All once was different. There were trees growing and flocks pasturing. There was milk and honey. Say it yourself, Yehudit. Once it was different.
Yes, David. Once it was different.
And once again it will be different. Say that, Yehudit.
Once again it will be different.
It is only a hope.
All right, Levi, it is a hope. And a hope can be a job to do. That's the only way to make peace with yourself. Excuse me. I'm going to borrow a pan to boil the water.
We stayed. David was right. Every hope is a job to do. Only we never dreamed how large the task was. The sun was our enemy. The soil was our enemy. The standing water breeding mosquitoes was our enemy. There was no softness for us, no favorable aspect. Only labor, hard labor unremitting. You had to be strong in order to live and to work. I married David on the 6th day of Elul. On the 7th day of Elul, we went on our honeymoon.
Congratulations, Yehudit. This is your hammer.
They were building a road from Nazareth to Haifa, a road of stone through a land of sand. David and Levi joined the men swinging pickaxes, and I went to the women who were crushing stone for gravel.
You can work beside me if you wish.
Thank you, Yonah.
The general object is to make little rocks out of big ones, like this. All you need is a dull mind and a large muscle. Try it. Amateurish. Bit more with the wrist. Well, the technique could be improved, but the big rock made little rocks, so why complain?
How long do I keep this up?
Till the road's built?
And how long will that be, Yonah?
I'm an optimist. I think it can be done in 2.5 years.
Oh.
If you don't care for the work, I can manage to get you transferred to the detail that's draining the swamp.
Oh, I don't think so.
Or would you prefer to carry bags of fertilizer on your shoulders?
Hardly.
Come to think of it, Yehudit, you and I are aristocrats of labor.
So it seems.
Then what are you waiting for, aristocrat? Swing your hammer.
A song of the road builders. Patish. The hammer beats, the trough of pitch boils, the press levels new roads to the sand. So shall we conquer the desert and desolation. It required 2 years to build the road between Haifa and Nazareth. And for 2 years, the hammer became an extension of my arm. We lived in a tent, David and I. We owned nothing. What we had, we shared with the others. We were working together for Zion, romantics who were prisoners of a wonderful daydream. And never did people engage in a collective daydream under more adverse circumstances. For the enemy was constant and unremitting. The enemy attacked each day after sunset. The enemy came in on a small sound, which magnified between the hills an almost extinguished sound of life itself.
I told you I'd get him.
All right, Levy. If you're tired of playing, you can lie back on your pillow.
I'm not playing, David. I've made myself a vow to attend to every mosquito in Emek Jezreel, personally.
Stop bragging and lie down. Headache?
Headache. I don't remember anything. I don't remember anything like it. Why am I yawning so much?
It's a symptom.
Of what?
The cold stage of malaria. Yawning, headache, lassitude, then chills, then fever, then the sweating.
How do you know so much?
I read a book.
You're a sadist.
Why?
Having fun with my symptoms.
Your symptoms? It's hardly an exclusive disease. I had chills this morning. So did Yehudit. That's quite a happy thought, lady. Yehudit has malaria, and Yehudit is going to have a baby.
The first 2 years, 98% of the pioneers came down with malaria. Quinine helped, but not enough. During the day, while we labored under the sun, the mosquitoes were quiescent as though biding their time. But after sunset, they attacked. We screened ourselves as best we could in our tents. We sprayed the swamps with petroleum. We sent out parties of men and women to dig drainage ditches, to dig canals. But there were always enough mosquitoes to lance skin and plant a deadly parasite in the bloodstream. And then it came, the lassitude, the cold, the blue skin, the burning internal temperature, the nausea, the flushes, the sweat. And we worked between paroxysms of malaria, 98% of the men and women in Emek Jezreel. And this is how I bore my first child, between attacks of fever.
Yehudit, the wagon will be here in half an hour.
Yes, David.
Haifa isn't so far away. I'll come to see you at the hospital.
David, will the baby live?
It's a foolish question.
4 out of every 5 babies. Remember what Ibrahim's wife told me.
The baby will be all right. You're not going to a midwife who doesn't even know to scrub dirt away from her fingers. You've been given prenatal care. Your baby will live, Yehudit.
All right.
May I come in?
Oh, of course, Levy.
The wagon is ready. I thought you'd like to know.
Yes.
We'll carry you.
I can walk.
Not with malarial fever, you can't. I'll put you in the chair, and Levy and I can use the chair as a stretcher.
Yehudit.
Yes.
Yehudit, you'll be all right. There isn't anything to worry about.
She isn't a child, Levy. She understands.
David, she's my sister. It isn't worth it. Too much pain here. Nothing comes easily. It's no good. David, why don't we admit it can't be done?
It can be done, Levy.
Don't make stump speeches. No one's listening.
But we're doing it.
The scarecrows. We've lost.
Listen, Levy, listen. There was no road. You and I and Yehudit and the others, we made a road. It became better. There was no tent. We put up the tent. It became better, didn't it? Yehudit and I have been alone. Tomorrow or the day after tomorrow there will come a child. That will be better, won't it? Now there are 15 in our group. And then there will be 20, and then 35 and 50. And that will be better, won't it? Come, lady. Help me carry her to the wagon, so she can be taken to Haifa to have her baby.
Beyond understanding. I had malaria. My husband had malaria. But my son was born. And when he was 5 years old, he too had malaria. Chronic malaria, the doctor called it. And yet he lived, because a wonderful thing came to us from America.
Look, Yehudit, a case of condensed milk.
I wonder if in America you knew what it meant. A malarial mother no longer had to nurse her child until both child and mother became stronger. There was a second wonderful thing. All our days we lived in tents, but a tent is a meager thing. Your shoulders stooped automatically until you became a postured question mark. There was no wall to hang a picture. No shelves for a cup or a book or a piece of colored cloth. And so David celebrated our son by building a hut of thatch. A hut with 4 walls.
Well, what do you think, Jonah?
Well, logical thought. You're a filthy aristocrat.
You're jealous.
Of a man? Don't be stupid. Men are overrated creatures.
I will tell Lady.
You leave Lady to me. Poor boy suffered enough.
Tell me, Jonah, when you and Lady are married, if he's so foolish, will you have a hut of thatch or a tent?
Oh, a tent keeps out the rain.
But you can stand erect in a hut. You can assume a normal posture.
A tent keeps out the sun.
Yehudit will hang a picture on the wall. As soon as I get some lumber, I'm going to build a window.
Nonsense.
I lit a candle and placed it in the window. The first candle in the first window of Emek Jezreel. And our tent had become a hut. And our hut a home. And our home a lighthouse for the people of the valley. The valley brightened. 1 window, 1 candle. But it was something. It was something also that the seedlings we had planted had taken root. That leaves appeared. Green leaves to brighten the grayness and to promise shade against the sun. There was singing down the valley and there was dancing. They danced and they sang, Achshav, Achshav, Be'emek Yisrael, home at last in the valley of Jezreel. After that, it seemed that the singing never stopped in the valley. The children came. The trees grew higher. The tents became huts. The huts became houses. And there were new projects.
Yehudi, I want you to meet your new disciple. This is Gamaliel the rooster.
How do you do, Gamaliel?
He's a very friendly bird.
So I see.
Gamaliel's in charge of 12 pullets and 2 hens we've just acquired. You're in charge of Gamaliel.
Like a general.
Oh, no. Gamaliel's the general.
Oh.
You're the vice president in charge of generals.
Yonah, I think you ought to know that all I know about chickens is what I eat.
We're not far ahead of you. You'll find grain in this bin.
Do you think he's hungry?
Men are always hungry. Oh, which reminds me, Lady and I are going to be married.
Oh, it took him a long time.
Don't be silly. I asked him. As a matter of fact, I told him. Oh, Gamaliel, no one's talking to you.
Not bad, lady, is she? For our first cow, she's a little on the scrubby side. We'll do better later. But this cow is the beginning of the first dairy in Amig Jezreel.
Where are you going, lady?
To the fish factory.
Good morning.
Good morning, Yona.
Now we'll start all over again. Where are you going, lady?
To the fish factory, my dear.
Ah, putting a new twist on it. Say it again.
Fish factory.
Isn't that nice?
It's just the swamp.
Why didn't you say so?
Well, it's a different kind of swamp.
Oh.
In fact, it isn't a swamp anymore. We've cleaned it, we've deepened it, and we've given it a supply of running water. And we've put some fish in. Yona, we're going to breed fish.
Well, chickens, cows, why not fish?
There's no reason why it shouldn't work. We'll supply the other settlements with fish. Maybe they can supply us with other things.
Know something, lady? I think the Valley of Jezreel is here to stay.
The valley has grown. Now, once again, we have come to the season of Hanukkah. My children and Jonah's children, they light their candles for Judah Maccabees and for the soldiers of Israel who cleansed the holy temple of Jerusalem and in that time rebuilt the Holy Land. And all over the village there is singing. And our children, firm-fleshed, tanned, their eyes bright, children of farmers, children of shepherds and dairymen, children of Maccabees who conquered desert and malarial swamp, our children light many candles.
And now we present Mrs. Israel Goldstein, President of the Pioneer Women of America, speaking from Philadelphia. Mrs. Goldstein.
Hanukkah in Palestine is primarily a children's holiday. For the 8 days of its duration, schools are closed and celebrations of all kinds are in order. Chiefly, the holiday is the festival of light. Huge menorahs grace the tops of the tallest towers and buildings, and Hanukkah lights are set at windows for all to see. Tel Aviv, the all-Jewish city, is literally aglow with light. Candlelight and torchlight parades of children, and grown-ups too, mark the traditional observance, and plays, charades, concerts, games are all part of the festivities. The traditional game of chance is the dreidel, made of the native olive wood with Hebrew characters. It is, of course, no foreign novelty in Palestine, but their very own native game. The Hebrew letters Nun, Gimel, Hey, Shin stand for the words Nes Gadol Hayasham. A great miracle happened there. Plays about Judah Maccabee and his brothers last year. This year it was no make-believe, but the imagination which stirred the child Judahs in previous years gives them a sense of reality this year, a feeling of continuity in the land of their ancestors, and a sense of belonging to that soil and the soil belonging to them. This year, 2,112 years after the Maccabean struggle, the story of Hanukkah has been and is being reenacted in Palestine, the land of the Maccabees, where first the lights of dedication were kindled. Palestine, the land of the Maccabees, where Chalutzim and Chalutzot, pioneers who dared, like David and Yehudit, to build the Singing Valley, the workers and defenders who envisaged the redemption of the country and dedicated themselves to the task of making of it a land flowing with milk and honey. Yehudit's first candle in the first window in the Emek has cast its glow of light and warmth throughout the land, embracing the modern miracle of rebirth and recreation that has there been wrought. Palestine, the land of the Maccabees, has itself become the lamp of dedication, sending out its glowing message of hope and faith to all of suffering Jewry. A people small in number but great in spirit and in courage, they have throughout the centuries told and retold the Maccabean story, clinging fast to the belief She'atanissim lavotenu, that he who has performed miracles for our fathers will perform them for us too. Nun Gimel Hey Shin, Nes Gadol Hayasham. Next year, perhaps, there will be a companion piece. Nun Gimel Hey Pei, Nes Gadol Hayapo. A great miracle happened here. The Jewish state will be a fact, and the Hanukkah lights will spread their rays throughout the year, making clearer and more visible the path for Palestine and for the rest of the world to peace.
Thank you, Mrs. Goldstein. Our Eternal Light drama today, The Singing Valley, was written by Morton Wishengrad. The music was composed by Morris Namorsky and conducted by Milton Catons. Featured as the narrator was Virginia Payne. The vocal soloists were Cantor David Putterman and Hadassah Kohler. The entire production was under the direction of Frank Pack. This is NBC, the National Broadcasting Company.
Unto Moses, saying, Command the children of Israel that they bring unto thee pure oil olive, beaten for the light, to cause the lamp to burn continually in the tabernacle of the congregation. And it shall be a statute forever in your generations.
The Eternal Light. The National Broadcasting Company and its affiliated independent stations make free time available for the presentation of The Eternal Light, a program which comes to you under the auspices of the Jewish Theological Seminary of America. Our drama today by Arnold Pearl is entitled Enzo Sereni, featured Jack Lloyd, Roger DeCoven, and Charlotte Holland.
He was a man who, holding a seed in his hand and standing before a desert swamp in Palestine, would tell you the comfort of the shade it would produce when it became a tree. He would point to where the flower would bloom in the marsh and tell of the taste of its future fruit. And just before his death at Dachau, where he was tortured, he wrote,
"If you know how to live, my darling, as required, and how to die as is required, the light will not be lost."
His name was Enzo Sereni, and what he said is true. I know. I was his eldest daughter. My father's house in Rome when he was young had 20 rooms. Life for my father when he was 16 was a round of receptions, teas, banquets. There was always laughter and tinkling glass and always also something that my father hated.
Oh, wonderful, Guido, wonderful. It's the most exciting thing I've ever heard. So did you hear?
What was that, Marchesa?
Oh, how far away we are today.
Sorry.
Guido was telling me. Oh, tell him, Guido, just as you told me, and don't change a precious word.
I was saying, Sereni, have you ever been up in a plane? Been up at the controls?
No, I haven't.
Yesterday, I went up with the airmen. They let me hold the stick a while and guide it. Then I went back to the bombardier, looked through the sights. You've never done that?
No.
Oh, tell him.
We took a target, several stacks of hay in the field, and let fly with the bombs. I tell you.
Now, listen to this.
It was a symphony in movement. The bomb struck and burst, erupted, reached into the sky. It was a rose blooming, a flower opening, the violent, magnificent flower of destruction. I felt like a god.
Oh, just to hear him say it.
And someday, think, Enzo, to drop such roses on our enemies, to bring again the grandeur that was Rome, to build with our fascisti a new world, to cleanse the earth with violence.
Oh, what's the matter? Enzo, the carpet. Enzo, where are you going?
I haven't been feeling well. You'll excuse me, Marchesa? Signor Guido, scusa.
Perhaps it was because my grandmother lit candles every Friday night and said the words of blessing for the Sabbath Queen. Perhaps because the greeting that my father loved best was shalom, peace. Perhaps also he turned because of what he read aloud in the evening from the book of Psalms.
Happy is the man that hath not walked in the counsel of the wicked, nor stood in the way of sinners, nor sat in the seat of the scornful. But his delight is in the law of the Lord, and he shall be like a tree planted by streams of water, that bring forth fruit in its season, and whose leaf does not wither.
My father never walked. He flew. He was the wind. He never turned. He plunged. And from the polite terror of the teacups, he dug deep into the tradition of his people, into Zion. And he found the clay was rich.
Im tirtzu einzu agada.
He studied Hebrew, the language of Zion.
If you will, it shall be so. Im tirtzu einzu agada.
He lived with Akiba, Bar Kokhba, Judas Maccabee, the heroes of Zion. And when he was 21, he met Ada Ascarelli, the daughter of a merchant of Rome, a woman with the same clean look of love for him as he for her.
And what will your papa say when we ask him, Ada?
He will tell you very simply, you are mad.
That's all right. That's a good beginning. Just a minute. I'll give it a theoretical statement first. I'll say, Signor Ascarelli, you are aware, of course, as we all must be, that only by centralizing our forces will our Holy Land be rebuilt.
I was given to understand, young man, that you received highest honors in your class at the University of Rome. Is that correct, sir?
There was some talk like that.
And should you choose, you can replace your father at the university, perhaps even as physician to the king, correct?
That's flattering,
Now
but...
you propose, sir, to marry my daughter. Forgo all this and sail off to a grimy outpost somewhere in Palestine?
Substantially, sir.
My answer I gave you at the outset. Mad.
That's about what would happen?
It would indeed, sir.
Well, I guess that leaves us no alternative. When do we sail?
Don't you think, Enzo? It's only right we ought to be married first.
They were married that year, and in 1926 they sailed for Palestine. Toward the end of the year, I was born. They called me Hannah.
Dear father and mother, Ada and I have settled in the Negev, in the south of Palestine. To look at, the land is not much, and to a Roman eye it might even seem a wilderness. But at our settlement, where I work as a laborer, we call it the Orange Grove, for that is what it will be one day. As I write now, it grows dark, and if I am tired, it is...
He poured himself into the wilderness of the Negev, but the sands were vast, and one man may not conquer a waste alone. So my father took me in his arms and brought a merchant from the city. Together we three stood on the plains.
Reb Hunkin, you're a man of vision.
Come to the point, Sereni.
If I tell you what this is, this field that you're looking at?
Field? Wasteland, you mean? Go on.
This is a grove of orange. It begins here and runs back, 100 acres. To the left there, a grove in plum, 200 acres. And to the right, where the hill rises, there, 100 acres in grape.
It's getting
here,
late.
The road to the coast will be built. The railroad will come through. And this will be a factory for making jam. We shall make raisin jam and plum jam and orange marmalade.
Sereni, I like words. I also like, money requires guarantees.
Every Friday before the Sabbath candles are lit, we take the children of our colony here and I tell them the story I've just told you. I tell them the taste of the jam and describe the scent of the oranges in bloom.
But guarantees?
I am your guarantee. This child, the children of this settlement, they are your guarantees, Reb Hunkin. Tell me, are there better ones anywhere in the world?
The money was given, the dream nurtured and begun. And Givat Brenner was built with my father's flesh and blood, and with the love and hope of us, my mother, my sister, my brother, my friends. Where 30 souls once struggled between the parched hills, now hundreds worked and lived amid the growing green of grass, then trees, then orchards. And in the evenings, I remember, I was 6. My father would come from the fields at dusk.
Anna, my darling, run to Reb Bailson and his wife and to Reb Miller and his sons and all the others and tell them tonight we listen to songs from Brahms. You remember that? Songs from Brahms.
Songs from Brahms. Yes, Papa.
And I would run to get them, and they would come and stretch out on the beds, on the floor, anywhere. And when they were all there, I would look up at Papa, and he would smile.
You may stay up tonight, Hannah. Only be quiet.
Papa, what are Brahms?
And he would wind the Victrola. It was the old kind, electricity we knew nothing about. And there in the silence, we would listen. Each face was shining with fatigue and with peace. Some sat, Reb Bailson with his pipe in his mouth that he forgot to light, Reb Miller's oldest boy looking out the window into the stars. And I would sit between my father's knees, his hand in my hair, and he would whisper in my ear.
Those are Brahms, Hannah. You like them?
Yes, Papa.
How long they used to listen, I never knew, for I would lie there till I fell asleep, and he would carry me into bed. Perhaps they fell asleep there, too. I never knew. it is said in the words of the rabbis, he sought peace all his life, but for the righteous there is no peace. They came to him, the elders of our settlement, with their problem, the problem of Israel.
There is much hate in the world, Enzo, and we here are only a handful.
I know. We need funds, we need water, we need understanding. What do we not need?
Mostly we need people, young people. We need seeds, men and women who can look at a cactus and see a plum. We need those who could tell the taste of future fruit.
What are you saying?
We need the help of the world, Europe, America, Asia. We need someone to go and bring us this help.
What are you trying to say?
Maybe it's too hard to leave the life you love, the people you love, the land you love. You are the only one.
Have you spoken to Ada?
No.
Of course, my children don't know.
No.
All right. I'll try to tell them.
There were words spoken that night to my mother and my sister and to me. I did not understand them. He kissed us and stayed much longer than usual sitting on the foot of my bed. I fell asleep while he was sitting there. And in the morning, he was gone. He became the Shaliach of Israel, the emissary, the delegate to the world. He brought warm within his hands and strong in his throat the power of our dream and his. In Germany and Austria and France and America, to the youth of the world he spoke in youth's tongue.
I bring you greetings from an ancient people and the youngest people on earth. A people that is being born.
Many listened and many also scoffed.
It is a land where oranges will grow, where sheep will graze and become fat, where freedom will be proclaimed, as the Bible says, to all the inhabitants thereof.
Many listened, but most scoffed, until... Then lightning struck. The swastika was burned in living flesh, and terror was proclaimed throughout the land and to the inhabitants thereof. It was war, official war. The delegate of Israel lowered his voice.
These passports will take you and your wife and children to Marseille. From there, a boat to Haifa. There's a saying, only those die who wish to die. At Marseille, the boat will be waiting for Haifa.
And my father, who wanted only the luxury of absolute fatigue, learned smuggling, learned bribery, learned the art of swaggering in a Nazi uniform. He learned to pack a Torah in a coffin and to handle a revolver. And then one night, as he had gone, he came back. And I, who was 14, felt his weight as he sat on the edge of my bed, just looking, not saying a word.
Papa? Oh, Papa. Papa!
Hello, my darling. Hello, Hannah.
Oh, don't get up, Papa. Just sit there.
You're very big, Hannah. A very big girl, a lady. You're so beautiful.
And you're going to stay, Papa.
We'll talk about it in the morning. You work very hard?
Not very hard, Papa. And I sleep like a stone. You are going to stay.
How's Hangman? How do you like having a baby brother?
Papa, please tell me.
You remember, Hannah, years ago we used to go out in the orange groves and talk, you and I and all the other children?
Of course I remember.
Would you like to do that tomorrow?
Oh, yes.
Then we'll do that. We'll talk all about it, about everything.
And wait till you see the way Hagar dances. Only 8 now she dances.
Tomorrow, my darling. I go back to sleep.
I closed my eyes, but of course I could not sleep. I listened as he went in and looked at Hagar, my sister, and at Daniel, my brother, the child he had seen only once before. I listened as he sat in the next room with Mama and talked.
Oh, such a family.
Such a family.
They miss you, Enzo. I miss you.
Ada, if you could see their faces, the people I have seen, the haunted, frightened people like yourself, like Hannah and Haggard, children, babies like Daniel, they come running out of every hole and cave of Europe seeking refuge, and each time they receive a whiplash across the face.
Hannah has missed you so much.
We're their only answer, Ada, if you saw the children.
I know. I understand, darling.
You know what I'd like? Very funny thing, even silly perhaps. I'd like to stretch out on the floor and eat an orange and listen to some music.
What would you like to hear?
There was a Brahms lullaby I kept remembering all the years I was away.
I'll play it for you.
Tomorrow, will you help me tell Hannah why I must go back?
He was with us for a day. Then he left. He became a parachutist. He became a recruiter of parachutists and a trainer in Italy. He taught them, peasants and laborers from Palestine who wore the British uniform, how to squeeze a trigger, how to use the butt end of a rifle, how to run zigzag across an open field. He taught them how to jump from a plane into land without breaking your legs, how to jump in daylight and how to jump in darkness. He gave them their briefing.
All here?
All here, Captain Sereni.
At point A on the map, you will effectuate contact with guerrilla units. 40,000 refugees passing over the Alps will be given in your care by the partisan units. The action will take place in strongly held enemy territory. The first group will jump tomorrow night at 2200.
Major Anderson?
Yes, Captain?
Group A is taking off now. Group B to follow in 30 minutes.
Very good. Why don't you knock off, Captain? You've been at it 48 hours.
Oh, I just want to watch them off.
Yeah, a good feeling.
To you, Major, a military mission is on its way. A successful action is in the making. Have you ever wondered what this means to the Jews of Europe?
How do you mean?
All over Europe, they'll hear we've come. The word will spread like fire. Jews came down from the sky. The impossible has happened. They who have no belief in anything, no hope, no will almost to believe, they will say it's an angel from the skies. And for the crushed and hunted, faith will be a possibility again. That flies in those planes, too.
I see. Well, why not turn in? The angels are on their way.
I might as well wait around.
Why?
A man has his vanity. I'm jumping with the second group.
And in the middle of April 1944, my father flew his mission, a flight to northern Italy. And in that plane that night, a wonderful thing took place, a miracle almost, even among angels. For that April night was a special night for Jews the world over.
I brought the wine, the matzahs, the bitter herbs, and the prayer books.
It was Passover night. And in the plane, as they reached enemy territory, they read from the prayer books my father brought.
This year we are slaves. Next year we shall be free. This year we are free. Next year those that are held in bondage will be free.
The mission was completed. A success. The refugees were brought out. 10,000, 20,000. But not all who start a mission can complete one. Not everyone. In July of 1944, my father was taken to the prison camp at Dachau. And somehow from that charnel house, he sent a letter. This is what he wrote.
Every time I see a child, my darling, my heart breaks a little. For I think, what are you doing at this moment? I wonder with what you're busy and what you're thinking. Do you sometimes think of your father far away? Perhaps I was mistaken not to have tried to make you understand the core of my soul and my work. But when you grow up, maybe
I will no longer be with you. You will understand someday that your father was always among strange people and sometimes did not find the time to talk to you. Your father goes from place to place to seek help so that we can build ourselves a homeland. And if we know how to live, my darling, as required, and how to die as is required, the light will not be lost. They never found my father. Only a statement in the Nazi files that a parachutist had been burned, a man who in his hours of torture spoke of Eretz Yisrael. And so at Gabat Brenner we have built a memorial to his name. Here in the Negev, in what once was a wasteland, we built a monument. And in it are the Torahs of Warsaw that he helped save. In it are preserved the gifts and wisdom of a people to the world. And in it also is an urn containing ashes from the furnaces of Dachau. Perhaps they are not ashes of his body, but they are his. And outside the Bet Sereni, the home of Enzo as we call it, you can see the fields are filled with workers. And at night the homes are warm with music. And from our house you can see the acres of orange and of plum and of grape. And if you stand there for a moment, you can tell the taste of the future fruit.
And now we take pleasure in presenting Dr. Emanuel Newman, President of the Zionist Organization of America, speaking from Chicago.
You have just heard the saga of Enzo Sereni, who gave his life in that very charnel house from whose ovens he effected the rescue of thousands of his fellows condemned there to die. Had he and his brave comrades lived to witness the historic occasion at Flushing Meadow 3 weeks ago, when the General Assembly of the United Nations decreed the establishment of a Jewish state in Palestine, they would have felt themselves amply rewarded for their noble exertions, yes, rewarded even for their heroic death. We need funds, we need water, we need understanding, we need people, we need the help of the world, Europe, America, Asia, you've heard him say. It is for us now to continue offering that help and to carry forward the great work of mercy and of rescue and national reconstruction. It is for us to ensure that the momentous decision of the United Nations shall be translated into reality. It was my privilege to attend the committee meetings at Lake Success and to participate in their historic proceedings on behalf of the Jewish Agency for Palestine. As I sat through the sessions day after day while the detailed plan for a Jewish state was being hammered out, I could not help recalling that just 50 years ago, the first Zionist Congress was convened in Basel, Switzerland, by Theodor Herzl, the immortal founder of the Zionist movement. Since then, for 50 years, millions of men and women throughout the world have toiled and hoped, struggled and sacrificed to make the dream of a Jewish state, that was Herzl's, come true. They did so not occasionally or sporadically, but by sustained effort in an organized way. Their labors and sacrifices have been rewarded at last.
Today, that vision, that aspiration, is nearer to realization than ever before in 19 centuries of heartbreak. The goal has almost been reached, but not quite. The next few months, the next year, will be the most critical and decisive. The real test is coming. We can give ourselves no respite until the many problems that still confront us are solved, and the dangers which beset the newborn nation have been overcome. Our task will not be over before the Jewish state has been firmly and unshakably established. This we owe to the 6 million martyrs whose ashes are strewn over the continent of Europe. We owe it to the brave Yishuv in Palestine. We owe it to ourselves, to our self-respect, to our past. We owe it above all to the generations that are to come. These are the sentiments which animate us today. We dare not relax. We shall enlarge and strengthen our organized forces to meet this supreme challenge. The action of the United Nations has given us a rendezvous with destiny. We mean to keep it.
Thank you, Dr. Newman. Our Eternal Light dramatization today was written by Arnold Pearl and was entitled Enzo Sereni. The music was composed by Morris Mimorsky and conducted by Milton Catons. Roger de Koven was Enzo Sereni, and Charlotte Holland was Hannah. The liturgical introduction was sung by Cantor David Futterman, and the entire production was under the direction of Frank Pratt. Free time to present the Eternal Light was made available by the National Broadcasting Company and its affiliated independent stations. The program appears under the auspices of the Jewish Theological Seminary of America. If you have any comments or inquiries about today's broadcast, please write to the Eternal Light, 3080 Broadway, New York 27, New York. The Eternal Light, 3080 Broadway, New York 27, New York. This is NBC, the National Broadcasting Company.
Spake unto Moses, saying, Command the children of Israel that they bring unto thee pure oil olive, beaten for the light, to cause the lamp to burn continually in the tabernacle of the congregation. And it shall be a statute forever in your generations. The Eternal Light. The National Broadcasting Company and its affiliated independent stations make free time available for the presentation of The Eternal Light, a program which comes to you under the auspices of the Jewish Theological Seminary of America. Our dramatization today is a repeat performance of Morton Wishengrad's The Thief and the Hangman, which is based on an ancient fable of the Yemenite Jews. Featured as Micah is Juano Hernandez. The narrator is Alexander Scurby.
This is a story that came to me in the night. I dreamed that the seconds were spilling from the clock, and and that the dead minutes were bundled into sheaves and stacked in space, and the sheaves were gathered hours, and the hours were folded years, and the years were buried deep beneath the centuries. A lonely wind came over space. No bird sang among the rushes. The tide was at the ebb, and the earth was bald where the grass had fallen out. And then I saw a man, and he made a sound.
My name is Micah.
And I knew then that it wasn't a dream. I knew that it was long ago in a kingdom far away, very long ago. So long ago that it could have been tomorrow. Micah had 2 arms, 2 legs, ears for listening, eyes for wanting, and a stomach for hungering. And while his soul hungered mightily for the Lord, his belly hungered for bread, and soul and belly joined in a prayer.
And ye shall serve the Lord thy God, and he shall bless thy bread.
Micah, there is no bread. Why do you say the prayer?
Say a thing often enough, and perhaps it comes true.
Oh, no, Micah. I've lived a long time. Faith bakes no bread. Faith is only a manner of wanting. Nothing comes from wanting except more wanting.
Micah considered this for a long time. And then he considered what he would do. I shall steal. He said it with dignity, the way you would say, I shall go to the office. Only Micah said, I shall steal enough to dull the hunger. And so very long ago, so long ago it could have been tomorrow, a man named Micah stole and became a fugitive.
What do you want? What business do you have waking respectable people in the dead of night?
They're after me. They've turned the dogs on me.
Turn your face to the moon.
Please let me in. Give me asylum.
Your face to the moon. You've killed a man, haven't you?
Oh, no, I haven't killed. I swear, I'm no murderer. Will you let me in?
Tell the truth. You killed, admit it.
Woman, if I said I killed, would you let me in?
That depends on whom you killed. Who was it?
No one. I told you. I'm not a murderer.
Then what are they after you for?
I stole.
You're a thief.
Yes, I'm a thief. Will you give a thief asylum?
And be robbed in my own house?
You said you would have let me in if I killed someone.
I said it would have depended. It would have.
Yeah. They're coming closer. Every man alive was once born. Even a thief was once born. Help me.
I don't let thieves into my house.
Someday you'll want mercy for yourself.
Maybe. But is it likely that I'd ask a thief for mercy?
If you won't grant asylum, if you won't let me in, tell me what to do. At least do that.
All right. If I were in your place...
Yes?
If I were in your place, I believe I would run very fast.
There is a crime here beyond theft and beyond flight. The crime is poverty. The crime is homelessness. The crime is the necessity for supplication. Micah ran on 2 criminal legs through the night, and he ran to the top of a mountain. This was an error, for it is at the top of a mountain that all paths unite. And here his pursuers found him.
All right. Come down from that rock, Micah. Someone take a stick and fly the mongrel. Micah, it's no use. You're surrounded. You can't go higher. You've got to come down. Be sensible, Micah.
The dogs, they'll tear me to pieces.
They will if I tell them to.
Will you tell them to?
Maybe yes. Maybe no. I'm an officer of the law.
What does that mean?
Mike, every man after the pain of his birth puts his fate in the hands of the law for maybe yes and maybe no. Come on down and take your chances, Micah.
Well, I'll have to jump.
Mm-hmm. You'll have to jump. Ooh, quiet the mongrels. Someone will patch your skull in. Get up, Micah.
I believe my ankle is broken.
Get up, Micah.
Ooh.
There, you see. When one leg is useless, it is still possible to stand on the other. Kindly raise your hands. Sergeant, inform the prisoner that we are on King's business and that we are accustomed to having our commands obeyed. Answer your head.
I have no weapons.
Still higher.
When you're balancing on one leg, it's a difficult position.
That's the trouble with illegal action, Micah. It always puts you in a difficult position. Sergeant, bind the prisoner's hands over his head.
Yes, sir. Where are you going to take me?
To a place you will see, and then you will not see. It's a riddle, Micah.
I stole flour and salt to make bread.
Hangman's bread. That is the law, Micah. In this kingdom, theft is punishable by hanging. Sergeant, carry him away.
They pronounced him guilty. Then they tried him. Such was the jurisprudence of the kingdom. But it wouldn't have mattered, since Micah readily admitted his theft. The king pronounced the sentence.
Death by hanging. I commend you to God's mercy. The prisoner will bend his head.
Bend your head, Micah. The executioner's waiting.
I should like to say something first.
No more than right. You're entitled to it.
May I speak?
After the noose is fixed, bend your head for the hangman.
Well, it's difficult to speak when a noose is tight around your neck.
No self-pity, Micah.
Thank you. Oh, the noose. Oh, speaking is hard this way.
The executioner waits. Say what you have to say.
I wish to say a few words about hunger and poverty. My name is Micah. I think that means who is like the Lord. In a sense, every man is named Micah, for every man is of the Lord. But then, why are we poor and hungry if we are made in the divine image? Because we lose our divinity, because we're always so busy turning over rocks and looking for grubs to stuff in our mouths. How can a man be divine if he has to spend so much of his time trying to outwit his belly? Can you tell me?
Why don't you ask the Lord? You'll see him before I will. Tighten the noose, Hangman.
But I haven't finished. I wanted to...
Sergeant, signal the drummer. Drummer! Well, Hangman, what are you waiting for?
The law clearly stipulates that a doomed man has the right to make a statement.
He made a statement.
It might come to the highest court. They might rule that he didn't finish his statement.
He'd be dead, wouldn't he? Finish?
Personally, I'm inclined to agree with you, but you can never tell about the highest court. If you have no objections, I'd like to loosen the knot and hear what else he has to say.
It's a waste of time.
Not his time. Thank you very much. How is that, Micah? Better? You have a chance to finish.
Well, thank you very much. Could you unbind my hand?
Out to the question.
There's something in my pocket. How am I going to get it out?
This pocket?
If you please.
It's nothing but a seed.
That's right. We're waiting, Micah.
Before I die, it's my only request. Before I die, I want to plant this seed. It's important.
Will require a better reason than that.
There is only one seed like that in all the world. My father gave it to me. It is the seed of the tree of life, the mystic tree called KIBM. Even in death, a man wants to leave life behind. It isn't a great thing to ask. Let me put the seed into the ground.
Micah, you are the only seed that will be put into the ground. The request is denied. Hangman, proceed.
The drums rolled, the noose was tightened, and Micah faced eternity with an unplanted seed in his hand. The hangman, his fingers clenched tightly about the rope, studied the doomed man. And then, unaccountably, his fingers unclenched. The rope went slack. The drums ceased rolling. And for at least a moment, Micah was born again in Travail, as he had been born once before in Travail. The hangman smiled a self-conscious smile.
It's because I'm rather fond of trees.
You've lost your mind. Let's hang him and let's go home.
I never heard of a KIBM tree. Did you, officer?
Stop the drum roll! Drum roll!
You're being unreasonable. Trees are very nice things. I have a personal interest in trees. Figure it out. No trees, no place to hang people from. If people don't get hanged, what does society come to? It's practically an end to law and order.
Stop the drum roll! Stop the drum roll!
You might as well start it again.
What's that?
I can't plant it. I just remembered.
Micah, this is a fine time to tell us. What did you remember?
I am unclean. It's impossible for me to plant the seed of the tree of life with unclean hands. Life depends on hands that are clean. Mine aren't.
Cleaner than mine.
Hangman, you don't understand. My hands are stained with theft. I can't plant the seed.
I order you to plant the seed.
You can't. I've stolen. A man who has stolen is forbidden to plant the seed of life. If I obey you, the tree will wither. My soul will go to hell. You'd better hang me. Unless, Hangman, you have not stolen, you can plant the seed.
That's right. I could.
What are you waiting for, Hangman? Well, take it and plant it.
Micah.
Yes, Hangman?
What stealing?
Taking something that doesn't belong to you, like my life?
I was afraid of that.
Well, I didn't mean to embarrass you.
No hard feelings, but I get the point. Officer, I believe you'll have to plant the seed.
Why me?
You're an officer of the law. You haven't stolen. Go ahead, plant the seed.
Micah, how many kinds of law are there?
You You told me yourself. There's maybe yes and there's maybe no. It's all right. In fact, it's praiseworthy to uphold the maybe yes kind of law.
But the maybe no kind?
Bad laws? Bad laws are like stealing people's liberty.
Hangman, you want to reconsider?
Oh, no. You can plant the seed.
We're not going to start that all over again. Now, look here, Micah, don't go away.
I can't go very far. My ankle's broken, and besides, there's a noose around my neck.
Fine. Stay right here. I'm going to inform the king. This looks like something for him to settle. The king will tell us what to do.
Micah and you and me and every man. We all wait balanced on one leg, a noose around our necks for the judgment of the king. From the day of birth, the noose is there and judgment impends. And only those who are never born are never judged by their fellow men or by their king. They came, the officer of the law and the pursuer of men, the ministers of the realm and the king. Micah waited while the king was apprised of the problem.
You say it is truly the seed of the mystic tree, Hayim, the tree of life?
Yes, Your Majesty.
And it may be planted only by one with clean hands, one who has not stolen, never stolen.
That is correct, Your Majesty.
Chamberlain.
Your Majesty?
You are the treasurer of the kingdom. You are the man who holds our highest regard and confidence. You shall plant the seed.
No, sire.
Are you a thief, sir?
Your Majesty, I cannot answer.
Are you an embezzler?
No, I have never touched a coin of the taxes I have collected.
Then you are not a thief.
Micah, does His Majesty speak the truth?
No, Chamberlain. For you have taxed for maybe yes, and you have also taxed for maybe no. And the things for which you have falsely taxed have falsely taken the bread from the mouths of the poor.
Your Majesty, I cannot plant the seed. I am a thief. Sire, let Micah be hanged and be done with it.
No. It is important that the tree of life be planted. Citizens, is there any among you who has never stolen? Let him come forward now and plant the seed of the mystic tree, Hayim. I ask for an honest man. Let him come forward.
There isn't anyone, Your Majesty. Shall I go ahead with the hanging?
Wait. Hangman, is there one man in the kingdom who has never stolen?
Only one, Your Majesty.
Good. Name the man and you shall be rewarded.
Yourself, sire. A king does not need to steal. Your hands are clean. Sire, you are the one to plant the seed.
Micah?
Yes, Your Majesty.
Give me the seed. I shall plant it.
Do you wish to?
You question my right?
I question the cleanliness of your hands.
A king is not a thief.
A king is a ruler. A ruler is one who holds power.
Say what you mean, Micah.
You are a thief, sire.
You will die twice for that.
Every man with power over his fellow man steals from his fellow man. Each man is an absolute end in himself. Who appointed you? Appointed you divinely, with power over the plenty, the hunger, the life, the death of men conceived equally in the womb and destined equally for the worm. Your Majesty, who made you arrogant like God when you are subject to God, as I am subject, and the hangman is subject? Your Majesty was given power to serve men, but Your Majesty stole power to rule men. And Your Majesty is a thief.
Hangman, plant the seed.
I cannot, Your Majesty. I have stolen life.
Officer, plant the seed. It is my command.
Sire, I dare not. I uphold some good laws, but also bad laws. And bad laws are thievery. Bad laws steal man's freedom.
Chamberlain, it is your turn again.
I am an old man, Your Majesty.
Age grants certain privileges and confers certain immunities, but immunity from falsehood, and no privilege of silence in the presence of truth. Your Majesty, we cannot plant the seed of life. You and I, all of us, we have stolen. We can never make reparation. Our hands are not clean.
Micah, is this what you wanted? I'll say it. The hangman is a thief. My law officers are thieves. My treasurer is a thief, and I am a thief. Answer, Micah, because on your answer hangs your life. Micah, what is your answer?
I will answer. I will answer not for myself. I answer for those like me. They are many times dead. They are many times unborn, in death and in life. They are the poor and the hungry.
Micah, answer for yourself.
Your Majesty, tax collectors, law officers, hangmen of society, I, Micah, I stole because I was hungry. Why did you steal?
They didn't answer, for there was no answer. Micah had sinned and knew that he had sinned, and Micah would be punished. But the king had sinned, and the officer of the law had sinned, and the hangman had sinned. And for once, society knew that it should also be punished. But when society plays the hangman, who is the hangman's hangman? This is a question for you and for me. For all men who balance on one leg with a noose around their necks. It is only a story. It belongs to the spilling seconds and the dead minutes that lie buried under a space of time. It happened long ago, very long ago. So long ago, it could have been tomorrow.
Now we present a brief talk by Daniel G. Ross, Chairman of the Board of the Society for the Advancement of Judaism. Mr. Ross.
The theme of the play we have just heard can readily be applied as a moral yardstick to the lives of nations as well as people. There is no one nation, no one group, and no one person with an absolute claim to goodness, or conversely with absolute blame for evil. Humility, a recognition of our own shortcomings, is essential for the attainment of a just and humane society. The concepts of the fatherhood of God and the brotherhood of man are based upon the traditional view that mankind is one and must learn to transcend the differences that exist among its races, peoples, and religions. We must therefore strive for the establishment of conditions which will permit of the maximum of human cooperation and at the same time the maximum of personal liberty. The world we face in 1948 is ominous. The split between the East and the West is terribly far from the ideal of one world knit together by a striving for peace. It is a new year burdened by famine in many parts of the world, by civil wars, by the uncertainty that comes from instability and fear. But the fact that crucial problems confront us is not a reason for despair. Notwithstanding the difficulties that exist, good and hopeful signs are evident as the year 1947 draws to an end. In the past year, our own nation has taken the lead in offering help to the starving and distressed people of Europe. The United Nations, with the strong support of America, has made possible a Jewish homeland in Palestine, opening the door to thousands of displaced persons who have waited homeless and unwanted for many years. While it is true that political and social upheavals are conspicuously featured in the daily press, these are not the whole story of today's world. Despite all the turmoil, the human race has not wholly lost its desire for justice, mercy, and human kindness. The tragedy of the past 2 decades has not left the world completely cynical or spiritually bankrupt. It has not deprived us of the yearning to build a better, a more ethical world. This is where we can find our greatest hope for the future. This renewed awareness of our vitality is apparent in our colleges, universities, churches, and synagogues. It is an encouraging sign that an institution like the Eternal Light, stressing long-range human values, finds so wide and diversified an audience. We are indeed grateful to NBC and to all those who support a cultural enterprise of this kind. Thus, we await 1948 with hope, with courage, and with determination. The problems are grave, but the spirit and the will to cope with them are stronger than ever.
Thank you, Mr. Ross. Today's dramatization was Morton Wishengrads' The Thief and the Hangman, and was based on an ancient fable of the Yemenite Jews. The music was composed by Morris Momorsky and conducted by Milton Cadence. Cantor David Putterman sang the liturgical introductions. The narrator was Alexander Scourby, and Juano Hernandez was featured as Micah. The entire production is under the direction of Frank Papp. Free Time to Present the Eternal Light is made available by the National Broadcasting Company and its affiliated independent stations. The program appears under the auspices of the Jewish Theological Seminary of America. If you have any comments or inquiries about today's broadcast, please write to The Eternal Light, 3080 Broadway, New York 27, New York. That's The Eternal Light, 3080 Broadway, New York 27, New York. This is NBC, the National Broadcasting Company.
From Hollywood, we present Lou Ayres in The Eternal Light.
I have made my heart into a rock. Yet I know it is written that the God of Jacob will turn the rock into a pool, the flint into a fountain of waters.
The National Broadcasting Company and its affiliated independent stations make Free Time available to present The Eternal Light in a special series coming to you from Hollywood under the auspices of the West Coast branch of the Jewish Theological Seminary of America. Our story today features Lou Ayres in Morton Wishengrads' The Physician of Birkenau, a drama dedicated to the United Jewish Appeal, now in its campaign for 1948.
My name is Anatole Miller. I'm a doctor. If I'm alive today, it's because I inoculated myself against the infections of hatred. There's an error people make. They think it began in Germany. It began before. And for me, it began in Poland. In Poland in 1927, I saw them force the Jewish shops to close. In Poland in 1928, I saw a Jewish mother offer her baby for adoption in return for milk and bread. No, it did not begin in Germany. It was not in Germany that I taught myself to be strong against cruelty and to build my defenses against the terror. In Poland in 1936, it began for me. I was a student in the medical college of Lemberg. I remember how it began.
Gentlemen, your indulgence for a moment.
He was a professor of pathology, a distinguished scientist.
Student Semenek has asked permission to read an announcement.
Student Semenek was not an ordinary medical student. He was an honor student.
Kindly give him your undivided attention. Thank you. Whenever you are ready, Semenek.
At 9 o'clock last evening,
there was a special meeting of the Board of Governors of the Student Union. At this meeting, the following resolution was passed by unanimous vote. It is recommended that henceforth all students of the Jewish faith be requested to sit on the left-hand side of each lecture hall or classroom, and further that they be requested to occupy only the rear benches. Any questions?
Student Semenek, I have a question.
I'm not surprised. What's the question, Miller?
Suppose Jewish students ignore this request.
Miller, we have formed committees to enforce segregation. Does that answer your question?
Professor, may I be permitted to ask you a question?
What is it, Miller?
Sir, have you an opinion on this resolution?
I am a professor of pathology. I am interested only in the science of pathology.
But, sir, yesterday in your lecture you discussed the discovery of the migration of the white blood corpuscles in time of infection.
Well?
You called the discovery a great revolution in the science of pathology.
Miller, what is your point? We don't have all day.
I thought you would see the point, sir. The discovery was made by Julius Cohnheim. You also made a reference to Wasserman and Ehrlich. They were also Jews. Do you recommend, sir, that I take them with me to the ghetto bench on the left-hand side of the hall?
Miller, I must repeat. I am interested only in the science of pathology.
I understand, Professor.
Where do you think you're going, Miller?
To my seat?
Your seat is now on the left-hand side.
You're mistaken. This is my seat.
Zimsky, Kolodin, and you, Sinzansky, are appointed a committee to see student Anatole Miller after the lecture. My apologies, Professor, for taking so much time.
Not at all, Semenek. Gentlemen, let us begin today's lecture in pathology.
I was one of 18 Jewish students who was beaten on that first day. Levy in anatomy, too, suffered a broken arm. Horowitz in gynecology received a ruptured spleen. Eisenberg in pediatrics was kicked unconscious. The rest of us were luckier. On the second day, the rest of us returned to classes armed with canes and umbrellas. There was a fight. Semenek and I were taken before the police magistrate, where the case against Semenek was dismissed. The case against me wasn't dismissed.
Student Anatole Miller, this court finds you guilty of provoking a riot.
I was defending myself.
I sentence you to 5 days in the city penitentiary.
But I have a right to defend myself when I am attacked.
You have no right to take the law into your own hands. You should have gone to the police and asked for protection.
Student Levy went to the police.
Yes, Your Honor. I spoke to the lieutenant.
You're Student Levy?
Yes, Your Honor.
What did you tell the police lieutenant?
I told him what had happened in the university. I told him that there was going to be trouble.
And the police lieutenant, what did he say?
He called me a name. Then he said, "Come back when the trouble begins. How can I protect you against something that hasn't begun?" That's what he said.
Quite right. Student Levy, you're not fooling us for a single minute.
But, Your Honor,
Silence! Student Levy, the court sentences you to 5 days in the city penitentiary for creating a disturbance. Officer, remove the prisoners.
In the winter of 1936, my attendance in the medical college was irregular, owing to frequent visits to the city penitentiary. At the beginning of 1937, I was called to the office of the dean.
Miller, the candidate for the diploma of Doctor of Medicine is required to be more than a good student.
Yes, sir.
I would say also that he is required to possess certain qualities of character. A physician must be a gentleman. I regret to say that you are not a gentleman.
And Semenek is a gentleman. Dean, I believe that when one gentleman attacks a second gentleman, it is considered quite gentlemanly to resist.
Careful, Miller. I will not tolerate disrespectful language.
I'm not being disrespectful, sir. I'm defending my life. The policy of segregation is illegal. I shall study, I shall take my examinations, I shall obey the regulations of the college. But, sir, I reserve the right to protest any illegal attack.
Miller, you are making an error. This is Poland.
You can't fight Poland.
He was a temperate man. I was not expelled. In 1937, educational hoodlumism received the sanction of law. The dean called me to his office.
Miller, this afternoon, Minister of Education Svetoslavsky sent a telegram to all school supervisors. I'll read it. Jewish students in all classrooms shall be confined to segregated benches. This decree has the full force of law. That's all, Miller. I thought you would want to know.
All over Poland that afternoon, in the universities, in the colleges, in the secondary schools, in the primary schools, and in the kindergartens, there were meetings of Jewish students.
The motion you are asked to vote on is this. Resolved, that we shall refuse to sit in the ghetto benches. Beginning tomorrow, we shall stand for all our classes.
I stood. For the next 2 years I stood. While Poland sat, a minority stood. I had a little niece. Her name was Sophie. She was 7 years old, and she was in the second year of grammar school. Sophie also stood. The science of medicine teaches that when the body is invaded by infection, the white blood cells defend against the enemy. It is a discipline. But if the blood cells defend against bacteria, the brain cells must defend against the evil of man. The resistance against the evil of man is built up in the brain by disbelief. By disbelief in his words of humanity. By disbelief in the pledges of his governments. It's a discipline necessary for the preservation of life. On the day of Yom Kippur, 1939, in the Polish city of Lemberg, the service in the synagogue where I worshipped was brief. We kept the day in a fast. We kept it in repentance and in holiness. But our hands were engaged in the digging of trenches for the preservation of life.
Down tools for a minute. It's time to sound the ram's horn.
It was the cantor who sounded the ram's horn at the end of the Day of Atonement. He made his call near the field where the children's battalions were drilling. One ram's horn of repentance. One thin, archaic sound against the modern roar of the tanks. Against immorality and hatred. Do you hear the sound? No. Not even now. Who can hear a ram's horn in a world like this? I fought with the guerrillas. And after the collapse of the resistance, I was taken prisoner. I was a special prisoner. I was a doctor. I had just received my medical diploma.
My name is Dr. Koenig. Miller, you understand why you have been permitted to live?
Because my services may be useful.
Exactly. You will do what is required. You will perform without question, without delay, with efficiency.
Yes, Dr. Koenig. What are my duties?
There is a new drug which will be given to you. Familiarize yourself with its properties.
After I have become familiar with its properties, Dr. Koenig.
In women's barracks V3 at Birkenau are 75 pregnant women. You will inject the drug into the hip.
For what purpose, Dr. Koenig?
The purpose is not your concern, Miller. But since you ask, I shall tell you. To induce premature birth.
Oh, assign me to something else. Anything. I'll clean latrine.
You will inject into the hip. If for no other reason than that you save the parents' lives. Each live birth is now punishable by the immediate execution of the mother and the father.
Yes, Dr. Koenig.
That's all, Dr. Miller.
If you don't already know what took place between then and now, you will never know. If you don't already believe, you will never believe. It's a story that begins with a joke in a newspaper and ends in a gas chamber. If you don't know it already, you will never know it. There is no merit in survival. The meritorious do not always live. There is likewise no merit in death, for evil men also die. Survival is a mathematical formula compounded by chance, and the greater chance belongs to him who will see pain and abide it, who will know terror and endure it, who will hear the promises of men and never believe. And after V.E. Day, I continued to survive because I disbelieved the pledges of my liberators.
You are liberated. Those of you born in Poland may now return to a free Poland.
There was a survivor of Birkenau, a woman. I knew her well. She retained a sentimental belief in kindness. She returned to her Polish birthplace, the city of future. She was killed in a pogrom.
Those of you who choose to remain here will be assisted to begin a new life.
There was another survivor of Birkenau, a man. He began to stand in a Polish classroom in 1936. For 4 years more, he was made to stand in a concentration camp. It is April 1948. He still stands in a camp for displaced persons. 12 years of standing.
For those of you who choose to go to other countries, be assured that we shall do everything to expedite your emigration.
I choose to emigrate.
Doctor, we have your application on file. But please do not be impatient. These things take time.
It takes less time to go than to wait. Going enforces no beliefs. You stand in your own shoes, you walk with your own feet, you travel your own way down through Middle Europe toward the sea, where there are fishing boats and seamen who know the currents that flow toward Palestine. There were some vessels that got through. These were not the vessels that trusted to the kindness of the Mediterranean patrols. These were vessels that preferred moon over sun and darkness over light. It was the sound of the surf. The sound of the Mediterranean surf 1 year ago, 1937 to 1947. 10 years from the ominous silence in a classroom in pathology to the sound of the waves breaking upon a beach near Haifa.
All clear, everyone. Single file, everyone, and softly. Very softly.
Softly we went out from the sea, and softly we went up on the way toward Jerusalem. I had come unto Zion, but very little had changed, for we came upon a familiar sight.
Barbed wire. We'll go around.
I had trained myself to go around with no trouble at all. We went a little way and we came upon a familiar sound.
Cover. Cover. Were those the guns of our patrol?
No, not those guns. No, those guns came by camel across the border. They're German guns.
Then let me shoot back. I have a revolver.
Don't return the fire. You'll be arrested.
But a man has a right to defend himself, doesn't he?
Throw the revolver away. You'll be arrested for illegal possession of firearms.
Barbed wire, a volley of German guns, the illegality of the defense of life, familiar things, familiar sounds, familiar customs, was almost good. Was almost like being home. In order to go to Jerusalem, you must go up. And up from Jerusalem, there is a university where no students stand. There is also a hospital where a doctor may enter and never be required to make an injection into a hip. Last year, I, Anatole Miller, M.D., the University of Lemberg, walked up the steps of Hadassah Hospital and no sentry barred the way. I walked through the corridors. I touched my fingers against clean walls. I heard the conversation of nurses. I smelled the sweet, cloying smells of disinfectant. And then I went to a door marked Medical Director. I stood there. I'd come as far as I could go myself. I was powerless to go farther.
Why don't you knock? It's customary.
It's nothing at all, nurse.
Well, if you don't like to knock, just open the door and go in.
I don't have an appointment.
That's easy. See? No difficulty at all.
You wish to see me, nurse?
No, I don't, Dr. Fiedler. But I believe there's someone here who would like an interview with the medical director.
It was not like barbed wire. For 10 years, I had become accustomed solely to barbed wire.
Dr. Miller, after your graduation, in what civilian hospitals were you employed?
None.
Tell me, have you ever been inside a civilian hospital?
I'm a doctor.
Please trust us, Dr. Miller. Hold nothing back. We're anxious to help you. Palestine needs trained technicians.
Outside in the corridor, I saw a paper with a word printed on it. Penicillin.
That's what I mean, Dr. Miller. Things have happened in medicine these 10 years. Now, relax, look around, sit in the library and look at the medical journals. Then when you're rested, come back. We'll retrain you, Dr. Miller.
You will eat here, Dr. Miller, with the other physicians. If there is anything you want, just let us know.
Penicillium notatum was cultured and subcultured by Fleming, Florey, Jane, and several others in England. Here in Jerusalem, we believe there's some small contribution.
Please don't get up, gentlemen. Dr. Fiedler has asked me to bring Dr. Anatole Miller to the refresher seminar in pathology. This is Dr. Miller.
Glad to have you, Doctor. Won't you have a seat?
Dr. Miller, I ask you again, please don't be embarrassed. Try these shoes on.
My shoes can last a little longer, Dr. Fiedler.
You must not be stubborn, Dr. Miller. Here, I think these shoes are your size. Try them. Come, Miller.
When I was a boy in Lemberg, I heard someone say, it's better to die than to be a beggar.
Oh, but you're not begging. These shoes are provided by the United Jewish Appeal, and this suit all of this. Dr. Miller, you're getting nobody's cast-off clothes. It isn't a matter of charity. Jews are helping Jews. Now, I'll leave you alone, Doctor. Try these clothes on. Please.
For 10 years, I had known only adversity. For 10 years, I had experienced nothing but the cold fire of terror and hatred. Now, upon a hill in Jerusalem, there was kindness. I had no defenses against kindness. I had no resistance against a door opening, against a hand on my arm. They had taken away my strength. They had struck me down.
Nurse, where was he found?
In the corridor outside his room.
How long was he unconscious?
Not more than 10 minutes. Dr. Katzman gave digitalis.
What's his pulse now?
60. But much stronger, Dr. Fiedler.
Thank you, nurse. I'll stay with the patient.
Yes, Dr. Fiedler.
Hello, Dr. Miller.
I have had a heart attack.
Well, it happens. That Dr. Katzman, who gave you digitalis, had a nervous breakdown after Auschwitz. You're entitled to a heart attack.
You know, you should have been harsh to me.
Perhaps you're right.
Kindness should come gradually. It came suddenly, all at once.
I think you shouldn't talk. Listen to me for a moment, Dr. Miller. We are going to retrain you.
But
You'll get well. Wait, there's a man here on our staff who broke down also. He got better. Last year, he made an important contribution in the science of dermatology. Next year, a medical college is going to be started here. There'll be no ghetto benches in this college. Neither for Jews, nor for Christians, nor for Muslims. We'll want you, Miller. We'll want you for the clinics. We'll want you for the college.
What can I teach them?
Teach them what you've been. That's also a part of medicine. You're going to get well, Doctor. Now go to sleep.
It is April 1948. I am in Jerusalem. My name is Anatole Miller, M.D. Later this year, I shall be asked to lecture in the medical college. I have nothing to teach. I'm a beginner. But they are kind people, and their purpose is occupational therapy. Very well, I shall humor them. For a patient must always humor his physician and must honor him. Therefore, in my lecture, I shall propose one of two prescriptions for the preservation of life. Either to train for disbelief and to lie prone without movement, or else to believe once again in the morality of governments, the pledges of men. I don't know which prescription it will be. Perhaps you will tell me.
And now we present Julius Fligelman, chairman of the 1948 campaign of the United Jewish Welfare Fund of the Los Angeles Jewish Community Council. Mr. Fligelman.
The unhappy survivors of oppression in Europe want to believe in the future. They want to have faith in the world and in justice. I know the Dr. Millers and the many other refugees who are still in displaced persons camps in Europe, and those who have found a home in Palestine. Only 6 weeks ago, I had the privilege of being part of a delegation of the United Jewish Appeal, which visited Europe and Palestine. The 250,000 homeless Jews who are living in the DP camps of Central Europe and Cyprus have faith that the free world will not let them down. They have faith that we will help them reach a place of freedom where they will be able to build a new life, whether it be Palestine, the United States, or other friendly lands. They are determined never to be refugees again. There is a great misery in many parts of Europe, but the remarkable work of the Joint Distribution Committee is sustaining the lives of more than 1 million Jews and preparing them for a new future. There is danger and crisis in Palestine, but the extraordinary program of the United Palestine Appeal is making possible greatly increased immigration and settlement and providing for the defense of the 700,000 men, women, and children in the Jewish homeland. Here in the United States, all of us are familiar with the notable program that is being carried on in behalf of the adjustment of refugees by the United Service for New Americans. I am happy to announce that this broadcast officially inaugurates the observance of the United Jewish Appeal Freedom Month during the month of April. Freedom Month will mark the beginning of the National United Jewish Appeal campaign. This campaign is dedicated to assuring freedom from want, freedom from fear, and freedom from homelessness to the 1,500,000 Jews who survived the persecutions of Hitler. It is significant that the Freedom Month should be observed this month, for it also commemorates the deliverance from bondage in ancient Egypt of the children of Israel. In seeking to bring freedom from misery and suffering, the United Jewish Appeal is doing a humanitarian job of historic proportions. This is truly a contribution to freedom and peace for all mankind.
Thank you, Mr. Fligelman. Eternal Light dramatization today, The Physician of Birkenau, was written by Morton Wishengrad. This program came from Hollywood and featured Lou Ayres. The music was composed by Morris Momorsky and conducted by Henry Russell. The program was directed by Andrew C. Love. Next week, The Eternal Light will feature Joseph Cotton in The Man Who Remembered Lincoln. Free time to present The Eternal Light is made available by the National Broadcasting Company and its affiliated independent stations. The program appears under the auspices of the West Coast branch of the Jewish Theological Seminary of America. If you have any comments or inquiries about today's broadcast, please write to The Eternal Light, 3080 Broadway, New York, 27, New York. This is NBC, the National Broadcasting Company. From Hollywood, we present Joseph Cotton in The Eternal Light.
All genius of personality is at bottom a great patience which never tires. He said this. He is now 75 years old, and he is not tired. His name is Dr. Leo Beck. The National Broadcasting Company and its affiliated independent stations make free time available to present The Eternal Light. Our program comes to you under the auspices of the West Coast branch of the Jewish Theological Seminary of America. Today's drama, by Morton Wishengrad, features Joseph Cotton in The Man Who Remembered Lincoln.
The House of Representatives will come to order.
The time is 2 months ago. It is February 12, 1948, Lincoln's birthday.
For the first time in the history of this Congress, the opening prayer will be delivered by a foreign clergyman.
There's a mild stir of interest.
It is my great pleasure to present Dr. Leo Beck, former chief rabbi of Berlin.
The voice that spoke was a quiet voice, a scholar's voice. And the scholar's voice had spoken, there was a silence. And silence is never an insincere tribute, neither to Abraham Lincoln nor to Leo Beck, the man who remembered Lincoln, even in the concentration camp of Theresienstadt. Who was this man who had remembered Lincoln? He was a rabbi who was the son of a rabbi. He was a philosopher who read Plato in the Greek and Maimonides in the Hebrew. When he had come to Berlin to assume his post, there were men who had sought to trap him.
Dr. Beck. Yes? Dr. Beck, I find here among your writings this sentence. Belief is the life of the soul. Dr. Beck, what would you say is the life of the mind?
Inquiry.
Are you a skeptic, Doctor?
I am not. I believe in God.
I see. Dr. Beck, I should like your definition of God.
Why, sir?
I am interested in your proof of God's existence.
Faith cannot be proven, sir. Those who seek God strive after good. Those who find God do what is good. God is a synonym for the morality which can live in every soul as its own moral law.
There was a silence. It is the measure of a man like Leo Beck that his utterances are frequently met with silence. They were silent but not convinced, and one of their number finally delivered a learned disquisition of the nature of the deity. The discourse was interlarded with many quotations in several languages. The voice dripped unction and metaphysics, and ended with a pompous question.
Well, my dear doctor, what do you think of my theory?
My opinion, sir, is not important.
Oh, but you're mistaken. Your opinion is, well, what do you think of my theory, Dr. Beck?
There is much in it that is good.
Huh?
And much in it that is new.
Thank you.
But the good is not new, and the new is not good.
The imitators and the pretenders learned to avoid him after that, and Leo Beck gave himself entirely to thinking through a progressive faith of Judaism. He wrote a great deal and spoke a great deal, but when he spoke, it was sometimes with an air of abstraction. His congregation found that Leo Beck could not be heard unless there was silence. He was a mild man with a scholar's face, and he refused to shout. He stood in the pulpit each Sabbath. He was a philosopher of religion, expounding his faith.
You do not bargain your faith. You do not compromise it. You yield nothing. And you pretend to no pieties, except those which can prove themselves through life.
And beginning in 1933, the history of Germany commenced to require a daily proof of the faith and the piety of Leo Beck's life.
How do you do, sir?
How do you do?
Thank you for asking me to sit down. Or didn't you ask me?
I didn't ask you.
Strange.
Is it?
It is, sir. Notice I say, sir. I had been told that you were also a gentleman.
Captain, I believe that a gentleman has been defined as someone who is never unintentionally rude. You have business with me, Captain?
Yes. You are, I believe, the custodian of the properties of an organization known as B'nai B'rith.
Yes, I am.
The Gestapo suggests you sign this paper.
May I be allowed to read the paper?
It's quite brief. It says merely that you, Dr. Leo Beck, hereby assign to, we'll fill in the names in these blank spaces, all properties, buildings, equipment, etc., of B'nai B'rith. Sign here, please. I have a pen, Dr. Beck, if you do not.
Why do you not take the property?
We like to observe the niceties of legality. Sign here, please.
You will have to take it away. I shan't sign anything.
You are sure?
Yes.
And the reason?
I shall not legalize what you are doing.
Dr. Beck, I promise you that you will hear from us.
He heard. They arrested him. After a week of imprisonment, unaccountably, they released him. He returned to his study and resumed his work, but 2 members of his congregation interrupted him.
Oh, Hirsch, Seligson, come in. Sit down, won't you?
Thank you. Do you mind if we smoke?
Oh, not at all, Seligson.
Thank you, Dr. Beck. Good cigar? Wonder how many more I'll be smoking.
Where is Seligson?
Dr. Beck, I have a cable from a London congregation which urgently requires your services.
Have you, Seligson?
Yes. And Hirsch here has a letter from Cincinnati in America offering you a pulpit there.
America has always interested me. America is a country without the Middle Ages. Then you will go? Seligson, why don't you go? Why doesn't Hirsch? They won't let us. You're the chief rabbi of Berlin. They'll let you. I can't go. Dr. Beck, it is a matter of your life. Please, Seligson, don't. Please don't force me to make any heroic speeches. I want to stay here.
Yom Kippur Eve, while members of the Gestapo were posted in the synagogue, Leo Beck said to the lords of Germany what a man named Mordecai had once said to Hangman.
We bow down only to God. We do not bow to man.
His bag was already packed when the Gestapo came a second time. And a second time they released him.
Dr. Beck, the foreign ministries of England and the Netherlands have provided visas for you.
A rabbi's place is with his congregation.
It was 1939. It was a dwindling congregation. On the eve of war, Leo Beck escorted a children's transport to Holland. When he saw that the children were safe, this man with a scholar's face boarded a train. A train goes in two directions. It goes to and it goes from. In his pocket, Leo Beck could feel his entry visa from the British government. But this was not a train from Germany toward England. The train stopped. The train stopped at the German border.
Your name?
Leo Beck.
B-E-C-K?
I spell it with an A.
B-A-E-C-K. Your passport. Thank you, sir.
You are a Jew.
I am a Jew.
You are a Jew returning to Germany.
I am a Jew returning to his congregation.
You are a fool.
But he was not a fool. He was a man of intellect and a man with faith, and his faith dictated that he should stay.
A rabbi belongs with his congregation. As long as any of my people remain in Germany, I must remain with them.
Religion must be proved through life, and the knowledge of God is not a knowledge of something apart and detached from this place and this time. On a Sabbath before Passover, Leo Beck stood in a German pulpit and said to what was left of his congregation,
Thou too standest before Sinai to receive the word.
They deported Leo Beck's 3 brothers to Poland. They sent his 4 sisters to Theresienstadt. He was alone. And while he waited for them to come for him, he read the Greek philosophers, the Hebrew Bible, the Babylonian Talmud, and the papers of an American backwoodsman named Abraham Lincoln. Yes. While the bombs were falling between 1939 and 1943, the last Jew in Berlin sat in his study reading the papers of Abraham Lincoln. And they had finally come.
Rabbi Beck, I have been waiting. Then let us go. May I take a few books? If you wish. Thank you. I'm ready.
There were 600 live human beings crowded with Leo Beck in the cattle cars that shuttled between Germany and the concentration camp of Theresienstadt. And of the 600, only 3
3 besides Leo Beck were to remain alive. Theresienstadt was a place with room for 3,000. There were 45,000 in 1943. 45,000 human beings. And filth and mud and hunger and vermin and sickness and death. Leo Beck had said it. A rabbi's place is with his congregation. He made inquiry for his sisters. Can you tell me, do you know a Frau Anna Fischer? She is dead. Do you know Frau Frieda Feldman? I knew her very well. She is dead. I'm a stubborn man. I must continue to ask. Do you know Frau Teresa Mendel? She died not long ago. Dr. Beck, you have another sister, Lisa. Lisa Stern. Is Lisa alive? Yes. Frau Lisa Stern was still alive this morning. Come with me. I will take you to her. He was a man of 70. He had endured much terror, imprisonment, nightmare, bereavement. And now he was to know a final bereavement. They led him to his sister, and he held her in his arms. But it was not to be for long, for she died also, and in her brother's arms. If these things are difficult for you to hear, think how it must be for him to remember. But when death is a commonplace, there is no moment left for personal grief. Grief is something vast, and sorrow is monumental. And the mourner's prayer is spoken by the single survivor for the multitude of the dead. And having spoken to Kaddish, Leo Beck remembered that he was a rabbi and a teacher. And so there in Theresienstadt, amid the stench of the dying, and the filth, and the vermin, and the hopelessness, and the cries of pain, Leo Beck began to speak. I wish to tell you something Socrates said to those who had condemned him. They drew near, the emaciated, the diseased, the doomed, to listen to the words of Socrates. He said to his murderers, I would rather die having spoken after my manner than speak in your manner and live. Stormtroopers stood not far away and pretended not to hear. Neither in war nor yet at law. He spoke slowly. The Hebrew scholar remembering the testament of a Greek philosopher. Neither in war nor yet at law ought I or any man to use every way of escaping death. Often in battle there can be no doubt that if a man will throw away his arms and fall on his knees before his pursuers, he may escape death. The difficulty, my friends, is not to avoid death, but to avoid unrighteousness. This was the miracle of Theresienstadt. The things a rabbi had brought up out of the well of his memory, things to say for a final hour. Rabbi Akiva said, everything is foreseen, yet freedom of choice is given. And the world is judged by grace, yet all is according to the amount of the work. Of the 45,000 who were in Theresienstadt, only 600 remain alive. You'll find them now in Palestine and France and England and America and China and South Africa. But go to them and ask, and they will tell you how in the months that followed, a man named Leo Beck
lectured each day and spoke quietly amid a growing silence. From his scholar's memory, he recited chapters of the Bible. He remembered whole sections of the Talmud. He remembered Plato and Socrates and Kant and Spinoza. And he also remembered Abraham Lincoln.
I shall tell you a story of this man, Lincoln. Once, when the war was going against the North, one of Lincoln's generals said, "Mr. President, do you think that God is on our side or the side of the Confederacy?"
What did Lincoln answer?
He said to his general, "If you ask such a question, you do not know what religion is. The question is not whether God is on our side. The question is, are we on God's side?"
Dr. Beck, you're trying to tell us something, aren't you?
Yes, Otto.
You're trying to tell us that the question is not whether God is for the Nazis, but whether we in Theresienstadt are for God. Is that it?
Yes, Otto.
By his presence, he made Theresienstadt different. And even the Gestapo recognized this, for no matter how brutally they spoke to the others, there was respect for him.
No more meetings today. It is verboten. Sir?
Sir. They did not forget to say it. Sir, Doctor, Rabbi. Mere titles, small things, but they gave him these small things. Nevertheless, they atoned for their civility. Theresienstadt had once been a fortress, and within its walls there lay tons of rusted, useless metal. This metal was dumped into many carts.
You, what's your name?
Father.
Put the yoke around your shoulders. You will pull the cart from this side.
Yes, sir.
Dr. Beck.
Sir, I can pull the cart by myself.
You will only speak when you are spoken to. Dr. Beck.
Yes.
You will pull the cart from this side.
Yes, sir.
Is the yoke on?
The yoke is on.
Then pull. Pull faster. That is not fast enough. Your punishment is to be yoked to the metal carts for the balance of the month. Now pull.
He was 71 years old. His strength was in his mind and not in the aged muscles of his arms and his back. Nevertheless, Leo Beck yoked himself to a cart laden with the rusted metal of ancient war and became one of 2 oxen for his jailers.
Abba, can you hear?
I hear.
Do you know what I am thinking?
I have no idea.
I am thinking that the Bible moves forward. Each period must win its own Bible. You and I are now winning the book of Exodus. We are Israelites among the Egyptians. We are pulling our burdens for Pharaoh.
He should have died, but he did not. For he was a patient man, and he had imagination, and patience and imagination were his genius, and combined to remove him from the pain and of the present moment into the memory of the past and the hope of the future. Unaccountably, he'd been saved. Unaccountably, he remained alive. He remained alive for more than 26 months of Theresienstadt. There is a legend that he remained alive because another rabbi named Beck died in Theresienstadt. The Nazis mistakenly spelled the name B-A-E-C-K and placed the name Leo before it. But however the legend, An army came from the east and liberated him. They were kind to him. They addressed him with civility. But Leo Beck said to his liberators from the east,
I am a Jew. My faith opposes no science, no economy, save those which forget the human being. We do not oppose them so long as they do not forget morality. The Jewish fight is the fight for the world of man.
They did not detain him. An American major named O'Donnell commandeered a plane and flew Leo Beck toward the west. January 1948, Dr. Leo Beck sat in the White House and spoke of Lincoln to the President of the United States. On February 12, Lincoln's birthday, the Speaker of the House of Representatives sounded his gavel.
For the first time in the history of this Congress, the prayer opening this regular session will be delivered by a foreign clergyman.
There was a mild stir of interest.
It is my great pleasure to present Dr. Leo Beck, former Chief Rabbi of Berlin.
The prayer was very brief. A prayer spoken by a scholar who had remembered Lincoln in Theresienstadt, and who was now remembering Lincoln where Lincoln himself had once stood.
Our Father, 19 years ago, was born that man who came to be thy servant, the man in whom is the Spirit, and who, for the sake of this land, became witness and testimony of humanity, herald of thy command and thy promise to the everlasting blessing of this country and of mankind. Almighty God, thou choosest people and selectest nations to bring them into the place which thou hast prepared. Thou changest the times and the seasons. Thou makest history enter the world. Thy servant, Abraham Lincoln, in a message to Congress said, we cannot escape history. So help us, O God, that we may not evade history, but may we be granted history. Amen.
All genius of personality is, at bottom, a great patience which never tires. Leo Beck said this. And perhaps I know now what his genius is and whence his patience comes. In the timeless book of the Passover service, there's a prayer. And for how many thousands of years have the forefathers of Leo Beck read this prayer? And soon, once again, Leo Beck will reopen the book and read. Cast us not, O God, upon the mercy and the charity of flesh and blood, but let us look only to thy hand, large and open and holy and generous, so that we may not be shamed and humiliated, neither now nor in all time to come.
Our Eternal Light dramatization today, The Man Who Remembered Lincoln, was written by Morton Wishengrad. This program came from Hollywood and featured Joseph Cotton as narrator. Louis Van Ruten played Dr. Leo Beck. The music was composed by Morris Mamorsky and conducted by Henry Russell. The program was directed by Andrew C. Love. Free Time to present The Eternal Light is made available by the National Broadcasting Company and its affiliated independent stations. The program appears under the auspices of the West Coast branch of the Jewish Theological Seminary of America. If you have any comments or inquiries about today's broadcast, please write to The Eternal Light, 3080 Broadway, New York 27, New York. This is NBC, the National Broadcasting Company.